Hi, this is Dr. Swapna and I welcome you to your Learn Lab. If you are an IGNOU student looking for help in your studies, then you have reached the right place. Here, we have lecture videos on different core and elective subjects of important IGNOU courses. We aim to help you ace your exams. So hit subscribe to our channel and as you watch, make sure to like and share too. Come and join me on this beautiful learning journey. In this video, we are going to study Investigative Psychology, which is Unit 8 of Block 3. And we'll explore how psychology helps in understanding crimes, detecting deception, and supporting police investigation. So, by the end of this lecture, you will have a clarity on the concepts of truth and deception, police interrogation, and how truth is extracted, and the major techniques of interrogation. So, we'll cover all of these in detail in this video. Investigative psychology is a branch of applied psychology and it focuses on understanding and profiling criminals, understanding the criminal behavior and assisting the crime investigations. So it was developed largely by David Cantor in the 90s, especially after he proposed the bottom-up approach to profiling criminals. So this means rather than relying on stereotypes or assumptions, investigative psychologists rely on actual evidence, behavioral patterns, and psychological research. They help the police to understand how criminals think, why they act the way they do, and what behavioral patterns they leave behind. So they assist in crime solving, profiling, and supporting the legal processes. Who are they? The investigative psychologists. Alright. So this was what it means by investigative psychology, largely applied to investigative purposes, investigating a crime. So most of all these terms sound very similar, like when we are studying the forensic psychology, the criminal psychology, police psychology, now investigative psychology. All of this sounds very similar, right? Let's clearly differentiate here what is the difference between forensic psychology and investigative psychology. So forensic psychology, it works within the legal system. For example, evaluating witnesses, determining competency, offering expert testimony in courts. These are all the works that are done by a forensic psychologist. While investigative psychology, on the other hand, works more closely with law enforcement. It focuses on profiling offenders, analyzing crime scenes, understanding behavioral patterns, and linking crimes. So this is something that is not being done by the forensic psychologists, like analyzing the crime scenes or understanding the behavioral patterns and linking crimes. So in simple words, forensic psychology explains things in court, while investigative psychology helps solve things before the court. I hope that brings out the difference. Forensic psychology is something that helps the legal system in the court, like expert testimony and witness evaluation, while investigative psychology helps to solve a crime before everything goes into the court. All right. There are overlaps, but they differ in purpose and context. So one is, as I told you, in court, and the other is before court. Right? So this is the major difference. Now, investigative psychology deals with three core areas. The first one is behavioral feature of the crime. What behavior does the offender display during the crime? How are they acting? How do they select victims? All of these help in identifying the perpetrator or the criminal. The second core area is characteristics of the offender. This is offender profiling. What kind of a person could have committed the crime? You are profiling the person who has committed that crime using the psychology principles. Then third is linking crimes. This helps determine whether different crimes are committed by the same person or different people by looking at the patterns. So this helps in identifying the repeat offenders or patterns. These three pillars help investigators to create a psychological picture of the offender. So these are the core areas of investigative psychology. One of the most important parts of investigation is determining who's telling the truth and who's lying. So deception simply means making others believe something that is false, right? So lying, deceiving, misleading, all of these terms differ subtly, but all of them are going to distort the truth. So Harmening and Gamis defined deception as an untrue statement with added details to make it appear truthful. So it is an untrue statement. I'm just writing the definition here for you. With untrue statement with added details. Sorry for the wobbly writing. To make it appear truthful. So this was the official definition given by these two people, Harmening and Gamis. So investigators must be trained to distinguish this lying, deceiving and misleading, because each of these involves a slightly different psychological intention, right? So detecting deception helps to ensure that justice is fairly served. So for that, deception is something that should be identified easily by the people who are involved in investigations. Going forward, so now we have types of truth and deception. So we have 7 major types of truth. The first of it is called objective truth. So this is a factual statement. This is a complete, factual, accurate truth, and there is no distortion involved here. An example would be, I stole the purse from the table at 6 p.m. yesterday. So this is a complete truth. The second is called embellished truth. Embellishment means you are adding something to the truth. So this is a truth with added false details. So here a true event is told but with extra false details to make the story more dramatic or more acceptable to the people. An example would be, yes, I stole the money but only because everyone pressured me to steal it. So here the part that I stole it is true, but the everyone pressured me part is the embellishment and this is false. Alright, so this is embellished truth. Then the third is called concealed truth, which means partial truth, or only some part of the truth is told and the important details are hidden. An example would be, I took the money but I was going to return it. Here the real intention is hidden. They wanted to keep the money, but just to escape they said that, yeah, I took the money but I was going to return it. So this is called concealed or partial truth. The next is false truth. Now this is a bit different because here the statement that is actually false, but the person who is saying the statement believes it to be true. So the person does not have any intention to lie, but in the end the person is saying the lie without knowing that it's a lie. The person believes that it's a truth. So that's why it's called a false truth. An example would be, I'm sure I locked the door, but actually they did not lock it. They were genuinely mistaken. They thought that they had locked it, but they didn't lock it, right? So this is a false truth. Another example would be, I thought I saw him running away. The person truly believes that they have seen it, but it's a faulty memory. You might have seen this case of faulty memory in your lifetime multiple times, right? Person would think that, oh, I had kept this here, but when the person wouldn't have kept it there, but the person believes it to be true. So this is false truth. Then next is called coerced truth. So this is a truth that is produced because of pressure, manipulation, threat or by force, right? And this is often unreliable because the person says the truth under pressure. So an example would be, fine, yes, I stole it. Can you please stop shouting at me? So here the person is saying that what the interrogator wants just so that the person stops shouting. Okay, I'm saying whatever you want me to, but just please stop shouting at me, right? This is a coerced truth obtained out of pressure or manipulation. All right. The next we have lie. Now lie, pretty simple to understand. It is a deliberately false statement with the intention to mislead. An example would be, I did not take the money when they actually did, right? So this is a lie. There's a deliberately false statement with an intention to mislead. And the last is called deception. So deception is a lie plus additional false details created to make the lie believable. This is more elaborate and planned. Alright, an example would be, I did not take the money. In fact, I wasn't even in the room. You can ask anyone, or you can ask this person. He was outside and he saw me outside also. So all these details are fabricated just to support the lie. So this is called deception, where a lie is told along with false details just to make the lie believable. Alright, now you might get confused between false truth, lie and deception. So just remember, the false truth, the statement is actually wrong, but the person who is saying it believes it to be true. There is no intention to mislead. Lie, it is a false statement, the person knows that it is false and the intention is to mislead. And it's usually short and simple, not elaborate. Deception, it is a lie that is extended, supported, embellished with extra false details. And this involves elaborate planning, strategy and story making. And it aims to make the lie appear as true. Right? So this is the major difference between false truth, lie and deception. Hope this is clear to you. Now, how do investigators detect deception? Or how do they know that the other person is lying or they are being deceived? So for this, they rely on both psychological cues and behavioral cues. And an example for the common cues would be facial microexpressions. So these are quick emotional reactions that are present in the person's face for less than a second. That's why we call it micro expressions. And then something like posture. The person might keep shifting their posture, shifting from one foot to another. The tone of their talk, like higher pitch or longer pauses, the change in their vocal expression, pupil dilation. All of these are the cues that investigators look for. Other than cues, there are tools also which help them to detect deception. And some of them we know of are polygraph, or this is lie detector test. We have seen about this in movies and all, right? Then facial action coding system, or FACS, and linguistic analysis. Linguistic analysis means we are analyzing the way the person is talking. So investigators need to be trained, and this training is going to enhance their detection accuracy when someone is lying to them. Alright. Now, detecting lie is a skill for which person must be trained for. So, law enforcement officers are generally taught to look for hotspots. So, what are hotspots? These are sudden changes in emotional tone, expression, or behavior. So in short, we call them as emotional spikes. So when someone is being questioned, if the person shows sudden changes in emotional tone or expression or their behavior, it means that the person is trying to lie or deceive. So law enforcement people are trained to identify these hotspots. They also watch for inconsistent answers, slips of the tongue, and attempts to avoid certain topics. Emotional intelligence plays a big role here. A good interrogator must be perceptive, calm, and highly observant, also highly alert, right? So this is why training needs to be given for detecting behavioral changes and lies, and this is done by generally the investigative psychologist, right? Another important concept is called leakage. So leakage means when a person lies, some part of the truth leaks out through their behavior, maybe through a micro expression, changes in body posture, or even the tone of voice. So emotions leak through non-verbal behaviors when people lie. Honest individuals show involvement, deceivers show stress and avoidance. Cultural background affects the leakage cues. So research shows that the person who's telling a truth displays involvement and openness, while a person who's trying to deceive shows stress, avoidance, or reduced eye contact. Cultural factors matter. So investigators must be trained not to misinterpret culturally normal behaviors as lies. So this is again something where training has to be given so that leakage can be caught. Another important topic in this unit is police interrogation and truth. So interrogation is a structured process of questioning user to gather information, clarify details and uncover truth. So this is a systematic questioning process to gather information and evidence. And the goal is always to extract information ethically and without any added pressure. So police interrogation generally includes open-ended questioning, direct questioning, structured interviews. We know what is structured interview. We have already studied what is open-ended questioning, direct questioning, all of these, right? And polygraph examinations. Polygraph is the lie detector test. And brain electrical and activation profiling. This we'll look in detail. And also narco analysis tests, right? The goals of interrogation are very clear. This is to obtain reliable, accurate information, to identify the offender, to support the overall justice process with truthful evidence. So, we need to remember that interrogation is not to persuade or intimidate someone. It is a systematic way to gather truth. There are three broad types of interrogation. The first is called voluntary interrogation. So here the person willingly shares the information. No force, no manipulation, nothing required. Second is resistant interrogation.
Thank you all for learning
this
with me.
means here
if you found
the person hides or withholds information. And then confessional interrogation where the person admits their guilt. So investigators must adopt different psychological approaches for each of these types of interrogation. A very important point, interrogation must always remain ethical. This means there should not be any coercion or torture. Confessions must be voluntary, right? So they should use psychological skill and not fear. No inhuman treatment, right? So respect human rights and legal admissibility. Confessions must be entirely voluntary. If a confession is obtained through fear or force, it is invalid in court. So it should have legal admissibility. For that, it should not be obtained with any force, right? So these are the ethical boundaries which need to be taken care of while performing interrogations. Now, from this part onwards, we are going to look at different types of interrogation. So the first type that we have is called deception technique. So here, the first interrogation technique is the deception technique, generally used while investigating a crime. The investigator observes how a suspect deceives or how a suspect is going to add things to a lie to make it look believable. So, how are they going to do this? By presenting false information to elicit a reaction. Through false statements, by contradicting the evidences or even inventing details. This is what the criminal is going to do or the suspect is going to do. So the goal here is to recognize the inconsistencies, the contradictions and the non-verbal cues and compare it with the known evidence, right? So this technique helps the investigator to study the pattern of the suspect. How the suspect is creating information and telling lies with a purpose to deceive. What are the different verbal and non-verbal cues that the person shows while making the deceptive lies, right? So this is called deception technique. Next we have suggestibility. So suggestibility means the person becomes influenced by the interviewer's tone, leading questions or pressure. So the responses are shaped by leading questions or interviewer bias. In children, anxious individuals or people with lower cognitive ability, these people are more suggestible. So suggestibility is higher in children and anxious individuals. For example, if an officer is repeatedly going to ask, are you sure you didn't see a red car? Are you sure you didn't see a red car? Now the witness may start believing that at some point they actually did see a red car. This is why neutral questioning is so important. So the example that I gave you, this is suggestible questioning or a leading question where you are forcing the person to believe that yeah, at some point I think that I did see a red car when the person might not even have seen a red car, right? So this is suggestibility. Now this suggestibility is a very wrong kind of interrogation which should never be done. right? But still we are studying the types of interrogations, right? So next we have use of mood altering drugs. This technique refers to the earlier use of narco-analysis, or so-called the truth serum. So the drugs like sodium pentothal, these were believed to lower the person's inhibition, which means the person will start telling the truth. The person will not have a need to hide the truth anymore. The drug would free them up, right? So this is called narco-analysis. However, these methods interfere with memory, may produce imagined details also, and are ethically questionable. So today they are largely avoided and courts rarely accept them because they are unreliable and it's very controversial, right? So that was use of mood altering drugs for interrogation. Then we have use of verbal and non-verbal cues. So investigators observe both verbal cues such as hesitations or contradictions, tone, and non-verbal cues such as facial expressions, body movements, eye contact, posture shifts, and the hand gestures the person makes. So these cues must always be interpreted carefully and compared with baseline behavior, like how the person's behaving when nothing is happening in normal situations. Is the person behaving the same way while being interrogated also? This is called comparing with the baseline behavior. For example, a suspect may verbally deny any involvement, but unconsciously they might be nodding their head during the denial, right? So these are very subtle verbal and non-verbal cues the interrogator must be able to catch, right? And that was use of verbal and non-verbal cues. Next would be pride and ego. So this is also a technique of interrogation. This technique leverages the suspect's ego or uses the suspect's ego to the interrogator's advantage. So many offenders, especially the narcissistic ones, they want to appear smart or superior, right? So the interrogator may say something like, this was a very carefully planned crime, only someone intelligent could have done it. And the suspect may start explaining or bragging or saying that, oh, I was so intelligent, I did it, you finally understood that I am so smart, and then start revealing crucial details, right? This is called pride and ego method. So here the investigator is going to appeal to the self-image by using flattery or challenging the person to elicit a confession, right? And this confession is made out of pride and ego. So this is useful for suspects with dominant or narcissistic traits, right? And the next method is called the good cop and bad cop technique. So this is a very classic interrogation technique. So here there are two interrogators who alternate between empathy and aggression, which means one person becomes the good cop and the other person becomes the bad cop. So one officer plays the bad cop. He will be harsh, defensive, and even confrontational. And the person who's playing the good cop would be very calm, very friendly, very understanding, and very encouraging. This contrast makes the suspect feel safer with the good cop, encouraging them to confess or share information. Right? So here the psychological contrast between the behavior of the two people is going to help in lowering the resistance of the offender or the suspect. Right? This is called a good cop and bad cop technique, right? Then we have something called tactics as a technique. Here tactics include like strategic silence or timed questioning and controlled evidence disclosure or withholding certain evidence, gradually increasing the pressure, using pauses to discomfort the suspect. For example, asking a crucial question, the interrogator may remain silent. The silence itself makes the suspect anxious and likely to talk more, right? So the tactic is adapted to the suspect's behavior and case type, right? Yeah, so this is another technique which is called tactics, using tactics as a technique for interrogation. Next we have the Reid technique. So this is a step-by-step method used by police to get truthful information from a suspect. It is accusatory in language and very direct, but used, should be used ethically. So it is a 9-step structured approach emphasizing confrontation and confession. So the investigator will be confronting the offender, saying that yes, I know that you did the crime, and then getting a confession. So there is always a risk of false confession if the technique is misapplied. Let's go through all 9 steps in simple language. So the first step is called positive confrontation. So here the interrogator clearly tells the suspect that there is evidence against them, or maybe like you were involved, we have proof. The CCTV shows that you entered the shop at 7 p.m. So this makes the suspect react. Some of them might look shocked, some say no, you are lying, I wasn't there at 10 or 7. Some even stay silent. So whatever the reaction is given by the offender, it helps the interrogator understand what to do next, right? The second step is called moral justification or theme development. So here what happens is that the interrogator gives the suspect a possible explanation or excuse that makes it easier for them to open up. Maybe something like, I know that you didn't mean for things to go wrong. Anyone in your situation might have done the same, right? So here the theme would be like, you must have been very stressed that day. Maybe things just went out of control. Maybe you were forced to do it, right? So investigator is giving them a possible explanation or excuse. This is developing a theme or giving a moral justification. Now, how this helps? If the suspect feels less judged, they are more likely to talk. Right? They feel that, okay, the person is being empathetic and understanding towards me, so maybe I should tell them the truth. I don't know if that happens normally, but yeah, that is the meaning of the second step, which is called moral justification. Third step is handling denial. So when the suspect starts to deny repeatedly, the interrogator gently stops them. So in simple words, it would be something like, let's not go into many denials. Let's talk about what really happened. The more a person repeats a denial, the stronger they feel. The more the person says, no, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, the person feels stronger. And somewhere they start to believe that they didn't do it actually also, even if they have done it. So stopping denials keep the suspect from becoming defensive, right? So this is called handling denial. So first, confront positively and say that I know you have done it, we have evidence. Second is moral justification, where you say that, okay, I understand that you might have been in a tough situation, you were forced to do it. And when the person starts saying, no, I didn't do it, they are gently stopped. Like, don't deny any further, right? Fourth is overcoming objections. So if the suspect gives reasons like, I'm not that kind of a person, the interrogator might just agree, but still brings the conversation back. Or they might say something like, you're right, you're not a bad person, something must have happened that day. So this would be a answer to something a suspect says, like, I would never hurt anyone. Yeah, and the interrogator would be like, of course, I know, that's why, this must have been a very sudden decision. So this lowers the resistance and keeps the suspect talking. This is called overcoming objections. The next is retaining the subject's attention. The interrogator keeps the suspect engaged, maintains eye contact, uses their name and speaks calmly. So they might say something like, stay with me, let's talk this through. Or if the suspect's mind wanders away, they shut down. The interrogator has to keep getting their attention back. Keeping their attention increases the chance of getting truthful details. So that is retaining the subject's attention. Next is handling the suspect's passive mood. So when the suspect becomes quiet, sad or tired, the interrogator responds softly. I know this is difficult, but the truth will make things easier for both of us. So many suspects become emotional by this stage, and this is often when they are close to telling the truth, right? So this is the handling the suspect's mood stage. Then seventh step would be creating an opportunity to confess or offering an alternate question. So the interrogator gives the suspect two choices, both involving guilt. One is first and one is less serious. So did you plan this or did it happen suddenly? So when you are asking, did you plan this? This is a very bad choice, right? The other is, did it happen suddenly or by mistake? So the person is bound to choose the second option, right? Because it seems like less serious. So did you take the money because you needed it, or was it just a quick mistake? The suspect usually chooses a less bad option, and this becomes the first step towards confession, right? So this is creating an opportunity to confess. How? By offering an alternative question. Eighth is obtaining an oral confession. Once the suspect admits a little, the interrogator asks them to describe what happened in their own words. Tell me what happened from the beginning. And this is a verbal confession. A verbal confession is important because it shows that the suspect is finally opening up. And the last step is converting an oral confession to a written confession. So here the suspect is asked to write down or record the confession step by step. Or the investigator might say, please write exactly what you just told me. A written or recorded confession is clear, organized, and can be used in investigation. So to summarize, the 9 steps would be something like, first would be to tell that the investigator has the evidence. Second is giving an excuse or explanation to make them talk. Third is stopping the offender from repeated denials. Fourth is turning their objections into chances to talk more. And then fifth, keeping their attention. Sixth, respond gently when they become emotional, right? Then 7, give them 2 choices, both involving guilt. One easier and one more means risky. Then 7, get them to tell the story verbally. And finally, write or record the confession. So this is Reid technique of interrogation. The next technique we have is called the peace method. So peace is a very modern, it's a non-accusatory and very ethical method, and this is widely used in the United Kingdom. So peace stands for preparation and planning, engage and explain, account, which means let the suspect tell their story, closure, and evaluation. So this is, as I said, non-accusatory but information gathering approach. So this method focuses on gathering information, not forcing a confession. So this emphasizes rapport, open questions, and ethical practice. So this is peace method. Once again, P stands for preparation and planning, E for engage and explain, A for account, C for closure, and E for evaluate. Alright. Then we have kinesic interview. So kinesic interview is based on the study of body language. The study of body language is called kinesics. So it is non-verbal behavior which is being used as indicators here. So the investigator establishes a behavioral baseline. Behavioral baseline means how the person is behaving when not under stress or when not being questioned under normal circumstances, right? And then they look for deviations under stress, the deviation from their baseline behavior. For example, sudden changes in posture, fidgeting or avoiding eye contact, or maybe struggling to find words, or maybe stuttering. All of these are non-verbal body languages that an interrogator looks for. And this requires highly trained observers. And here, cultural differences must be considered, right? Cultural differences must always be considered during an interrogation. Then we have maximization and minimization. So in maximization, the interrogator exaggerates the seriousness of the situation. For example, suggesting that the evidence is very overwhelming and that the offender will face very severe punishment. So they are exaggerating the evidence here and the consequences to intimidate the offender. This is called maximization. In minimization, they downplay the moral blame or downplay the moral seriousness to get a confession, and they offer face-saving rationales also. Something like maybe you didn't mean to do it, maybe it was just an accident, right? So this often used together in a very calibrated manner, both maximization and minimization, right? First, you exaggerate the evidence and the consequences, and then minimize or downplay the culpability or the moral seriousness. So the suspect often chooses the easier option and confesses, right? This is maximization and minimization. The next is something called cognitive interview. So this technique is especially used for witnesses, interrogating a witness, not an offender, right? It enhances memory by using strategies such as reinstating the context, recalling events in different orders, or switching perspectives. So cognitive interview, this is a memory enhancement and method for witnesses. With the witnesses later may also be adopted for suspects. And the techniques involve context reinstatement, varied recall order, which means the witness might be asked to recall the incident in a particular order from top to bottom or from last to front, right? So if there is any change in what they said in different orders, which means they are lying, right? And also multiple retrieval cues. For example, asking a witness like close your eyes and picture the scene. What did you hear first? Right? This improves accuracy and also reduces suggestibility. This is cognitive interview, basically to enhance the memory, to help them recall things in different orders, to make sure that they are not lying and they are not deceiving. Right? This is cognitive interview. Then we have the polygraph test. So the polygraph measures physiological arousal like heart rate, skin conductance, breathing patterns, and all of these during the questioning. And these are all autonomic responses. Autonomic responses means which are not under the voluntary control of the person, right? These are involuntary responses. So this cannot be faked, right? So it does not detect lies directly, it only detects the stress. So because innocent people can also feel stressed, courts generally do not accept polygraph tests as an evidence, but it is still used as it's still used as an investigative tool to narrow down the suspects, right? So polygraph is not a perfect lie detector. It's only used as an investigative tool and not a definitive evidence. Legal status and admissibility vary by jurisdiction, right? Why? Because the stress which is being measured by the polygraph machine can also be there in innocent people, right? Anybody is scared of police, right? And being questioned for a crime, anybody will have the stress also, right? So that's why polygraph is not much reliable. Finally, we have forensic assessment. So forensic assessment involves psychological testing to evaluate the mental state, competency, credibility, and malingering. So this is a comprehensive psychological evaluation, and this includes malingering tests, clinical interviews, MMPI, which is Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, and cognitive tests. And what is this going to do? It assesses competence, credibility, malingering, and mental state. Malingering means whether the person is lying about their mental state. And this combines behavioral, neuropsychological, and collateral data. Collateral data means data which is collected from other sources, like maybe neighbors, friends, or co-workers, and from social media, all of that. Right? This helps to determine whether someone is lying, exaggerating symptoms, or genuinely impaired.
Make sure you share the video with your friends.
So that is forensic assessment.
Subscribe to make sure that you won't miss out on
to summarize, investigative psychology is a crucial branch that helps understand criminal behavior and supports ethical police investigation. We have explored truth and deception. We have seen types of truth. We have seen how interrogation works, and I think about 14 major techniques which are used for interrogation. These techniques must always be applied ethically with the goal of reaching the truth, not breaking the person, right? So that was all about this unit. So I find this unit a bit boring, so I hope the video was not as boring as I feel, right? So
thank you all for learning with me. If you found the video helpful, make sure you let me know by hitting the like button. Make sure you share the video with your friends too. Subscribe to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the new videos. You can reach me by simply dropping a comment. See you in the next one. Till then, happy learning.